Welcome to Alter Everything, a podcast about data science and analytics culture. I'm Megan Bowers, and today I'm talking with Richie Cotton, Senior Data Evangelist at DataCamp. In this episode, we chat about all kinds of data and AI hot topics. Will AI reduce our need to learn coding? What are applications of AI agents today? What does it mean to be an AI-first company? We'll discuss all these questions and more. Let's get started. Hi, everybody. Excited to be here for a new type of episode, for me at least. I'm Megan Bowers, and I am a senior content manager at Alteryx, and I'm host of the Alter Everything podcast, which is a podcast about data science and analytics culture. So excited to chat about data hot topics today.
Yeah, great to be chatting with you, Megan. So I'm Richie. I am a senior data evangelist at DataCamp. I'm also a podcast host. I host the DataFramed podcast about data and AI. So great to have a collaboration with you.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to talk a bit about changes in skills. At DataCamp, we do a lot of education for people wanting to learn about data skills or wanting to learn some AI skills. And one of the big questions we have is, well, AI can increasingly write good code. Do I still need to learn about how to write code? Since you're working for a company that makes a low-code tool, do you want to talk about how has that changed things?
It is really fun to work at Alteryx and talk to just the variety and, like, diversity of people that use Alteryx and, like, the diversity of roles in the business. So we see a lot of business analyst type roles jumping in with Alteryx, whether that's someone in supply chain who, is getting drowned in the data and the spreadsheets and the supplier name challenges, or it's folks in finance who need more governability, auditability. And like often these people aren't coming from a data background. Sometimes they've been pushed into it. Sometimes they've raised their hand for something like, oh, sure, I can help with an ERP migration. And then all of a sudden, like, they are a data person. Like all of a sudden that kind of like happens to them, or they lean into it. They say, okay, I do enjoy working with data. But yeah, I mean, that's like one thing that I see all the time is that users come from more of like the business background, the domain expertise, and they are able to pick up the data analytics with the low code, no code tool that we have. It's cool to watch, and it does kind of raise the question of do do analysts need these coding skills? And it's hard to kind of come up with a one size fits all answer, but I do feel like it's moving away from, you have to know R, you have to know Python, to you have to be able to pick up some of these tools, and the tools might change. You might get new software to learn. And so that's like that's one of the things I've kind of observed. And I think, I mean, when it comes to more of like the data science role, I have just been reading a little bit more on that. And I think like there are some shifts from going from as heavy on the coding, since AI can help with the coding, moving towards like the advising, the monitoring, the AI kind of advisor role. But I've seen literature on this or writing on this, but I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I've seen those job descriptions quite yet. But yeah, I'm curious what your take is.
Yeah. I mean, I do think there's a big difference depending on what your job is. So, like you mentioned, like even if you have never wanted to be a data person, you've gone into business or you've gone into like some other role, data's kind of invading everything, right? So you do see a lot of people where like I have no intention to be a data person, but now I'm somehow a data person, and there it's like you really do want a lot of tooling assistance because maybe you don't care about the nitty gritty of data so much. You just want to get your job done. Whereas if you are actively a data professional, you've got into this on purpose, you've been mindful, I love working with data, then yeah, you probably want a bit more control. And so coding is still incredibly useful in some cases. And maybe it's different between data analysts and data scientists. I think for a lot of data analyst roles, particularly business analytics, combination of like Alteryx plus BI tool, that's amazing. You don't need to write
Hmm.
code, you will solve all your problems. But for data scientists, I think Jupyter notebooks are probably still the kind of standard interface. And so, yeah, a bit of Python, a bit of SQL, that's going to get you a long way.
Yeah, and something I think about too, just seeing some of the code generation or people using Claude or or OpenAI to help with generating code, I think about, well, what if it doesn't work? Or what if you run into problems or like, yeah, you get some errors or you have issues 6 months down the line, like you do still need to be able to troubleshoot, and to be able to like diagnose and like, yeah, I think that there's that element to it as well.
I'm right there with you, and I think, one of the things we've been thinking a lot about, at DataCamp as we create courses where it's like you learn to code. Originally, like, the courses were very sort of focused on, like, well, you need to learn the syntax, and now it's less about that. It's like, well, the AI can help you with the syntax. You need to understand the concept of, like, what are you actually trying to do, and you also need to be able to read the code that the AI has generated and understand it just to make sure, is this actually right or not? And be able to debug it, because if something goes wrong, you need to have a clue about, "Oh, okay, what's happened here? What do I need to do to fix it?" Being able to read stuff is more important than being able to write stuff, I think, at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So, yeah, beyond this, I think you had a story about, AI agents.
Yeah, yeah, I can jump in. I mean, I know we wanted to talk about like AI agents and like the hype versus reality. Are we there yet? Which is a hard question to answer. I appreciate like Gartner and other companies trying to survey people on this, but I did find some interesting like applications on this one Wall Street Journal article where they were talking about, okay, how are companies using AI agents today? This was like more beginning of the year. And there was an interesting one at eBay where they're using agents to like write code and create marketing campaigns. It was talking about how they kind of have this like agent framework where it kind of determines which AI models are used for which tasks. So to me, that felt like a use case at the next level. It's not just we have some AI models we're using, it's like we're kind of orchestrating and deploying, sending out, I don't know exactly how it works, but sending out the right agent for the right task, that kind of higher level of determining, what is needed for which task, and I thought that that was interesting, and they're using it for code as well to, like, yeah, generate code, improve code, things like that.
Yeah, it just seemed like there are a lot of use cases, and maybe the definition of AI agent is kind of very broad, because it's almost a marketing term at the moment, because there's everyone wants to say, "Yeah, we're using AI agents." And so there's, like, some very simple stuff where it's basically just like, it's a business process encoded in software, and, like, maybe there's an LLM in it somewhere. And then you have all these companies promising, like, AI workers. So you got, like, this Cognition Labs has this Devin AI software engineer. You got, like, Julius AI's got, an AI data scientist. EMA's got like a universal AI employee, which sounds very ambitious. And I'm not quite sure these work completely yet. Like, you can't quite replace humans reliably. I don't know whether you have a sense of like where the sort of cutoff point is for like what's an agent that actually works.
It is tough, I mean, what you said about it being sometimes marketing, there's almost this AI agent washing, like greenwashing, where it's like you take something that's close to an AI agent and you spin it out as like we have an AI agent. So it can be kind of tough if you don't know the details to know, what exactly truly is agentic AI being deployed at the companies. Some of these are still maybe more in experimental phases. There was this like report by Gartner that like 40% of agentic AI projects will be canceled by 2027. And that prediction, and I was like, "Whoa, that's a big number." And I think it speaks to some of the early stageness of it all.
Although surprisingly low, actually, like only 40%. That means 60% is actually going to work. I feel
"Ha,
like
you're
that's
glass half
wildly
full. Okay.
optimistic.
Okay, okay." I don't know, I was just like, "Oh, if people are investing billions of dollars, that's a lot of 40% is a lot of dollars that are just gonna disappear because of, like, unclear business value or risk." But, you know, I appreciate the glass half full take. 60%, yeah, you're like, 60% of these agents, like, that could translate to people losing their jobs because if the agents are like a digital workforce, it's true, 60% is pretty high.
Definitely. I mean, I think there's like the very simple agents, and maybe like where most of the action is at the moment. So we've got an example, like one of my colleagues in the sales team created this agent where, like, after every sales call, the salespeople are supposed to write about like the state of the deal, like what happened in the call, and they use this framework called MedPick, which I don't really understand. It's a sales thing. It just basically says these are the attributes like where we're up to with the deal, and all the account executives, the business development reps, they really hate doing this because writing what happened in a call is tedious and it's not like going after new deals. So there's an agent now. It takes the transcript, it summarizes it according to the format, it uploads the details to like wherever they're archived on Salesforce somewhere. So it's doing a task that like humans just really, really hate doing, and they do it badly because they hate it. And so automating that kind of task is like it's fairly straightforward. It works, and you don't even have to. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be better than a human that doesn't care. That's like just a really nice example. I don't know whether you've seen similar examples of just like simple things that you can automate.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's the automation piece that kind of moves into the agentic like, you're not the one copy and pasting the transcript, sending it to ChatGPT, getting it like, sending it out. If there's, like, that automation of the task, I feel like that is the first thing, like, that I've seen where it's just, like, the next it is kind of the next logical step where, okay, we've seen people in Alteryx, like, pull in LLMs to enrich or to clean up their data, things like that, but then once that is incorporated into, like, a full automated workflow and it's you can schedule it, it schedules on a run, it does this, like, I think it gets more into that AI agent category, and I've also seen kind of the agents starting to be used in cases where just, you wanna get to answers, but you're trying to pull from, like, many data sources, not just a web scrape of the internet. You want your business sources, you want your Salesforce data in there, you want your customer data or maybe not customer data, but, all these different data sources at your company and having an interface where you can interact with all of that and even, like, automate some reporting, things like that, I think, is where I've seen some companies moving into.
Okay, yeah. So I like the idea of agentic or at least automated data cleaning because that's the like the part of analytics no one really likes. Like no one's like, yeah, I love cleaning data. So yeah, that's a great idea for just yeah automating the bits of your job that you don't like. It's good for your mental health anyway, even if you don't care about the productivity benefits.
Right, yeah, creating lookup tables, not good for your mental health. So, being able to automate the data cleaning and swapping and all of that, totally, it's much better, as well as memorizing coding syntax, like, I don't know, people already are Googling syntax, you just can't remember it all the time, so, anyway, yeah, I like that.
Absolutely. And I guess, so maybe one of the bigger developments over the last few months has been that these deep research tools are getting quite popular, and they seem to be sort of getting to the point where they actually work at what they're promised to do, which is just think a bit more carefully. And so you can have sort of slightly more complex reasoning evolved. So if you build these into agents, I feel like that's the next step of having agents that can think a little and do and make smart decisions. I don't know, have you played around with the deep research tools at all? Have you, seen whether they work or not?
I've seen some colleagues play around with them and show some kind of things around, say they have a new prospect or a new customer and they really want to know, like, I want to help their business with our software. Like, I want to know all about their business. And the amount of information, 12-page to 20-page research report on this is the business. These are the challenges, like some really interesting information. And like, I was kind of impressed by just the volume of it all, as well as the amount of time that, this was through ChatGPT that ChatGPT took to think about all of this. Yeah, I haven't played around. I like love using ChatGPT for research, but haven't played around as much myself with the deep research. But what about you? Have you seen some interesting results from that?
Yeah, so it does seem to be one of those things where, the theoretical sort of really good use case is doing customers research or competitor research where you're like I don't really wanna go and read through, like, 20 blog posts from this competitor. I just wanna see what they're doing. But then, yeah, the deep research tools, they go away, they spend, like, 10 minutes, they come back with a 20-page report, and they're like, "Well, do I wanna read 20 pages on this?" Then you have to use AI again to summarize what the deep research tool did, and it's
That
just
is a thought that
layers of it.
occurred to me when this 20-page document was shown. I was like, "Woo, gonna need an executive summary."
Yeah, so maybe like it's a work in progress. I feel like at some point it's probably going to get very useful, but now it's kind of used with caution, and you really do have to spend quite a lot of effort. I think just prompt engineering to make sure you're getting exactly what you want there.
Right, and something that made me think when you said, the next step of maybe incorporating this mode into AI agents, like, it is more resource intensive. And if there are issues with really defining the true business use case, the true ROI and of an AI agent, and then you put in this insane costly or, like, resource-heavy computing with the deep research mode, it's like, "Ooh, yeah, definitely proceed with caution," in my mind of you definitely would wanna kind of work your way up maybe to incorporating a model like that to make sure that you truly need that power and that you're not just kind of making it advanced research just to make it advanced research. That's just something that comes to mind.
Absolutely. I mean, you can research things like forever, but unless you actually act on that, or you've got like the right information in there, then it's just a sort of a waste of everyone's time, I suppose.
A lot of this, we're talking about a lot of AI applications, and there's been headlines around companies saying, like, they're an AI first company. So I'm curious, like, what your take on that is, on what that really means.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have very mixed opinions on this. So I think on the positive side is like, yeah, in every business, there are going to be lots of use cases of AI that people have not yet thought of. And it's important for CEOs to motivate people to be like, yes, let's go and see what we can do here. Um, the cynical side of me is like, well, actually, this is just a polite way of saying we want to do a hiring freeze or we want to make layoffs, and this is just like a a way to make it more publicly acceptable. So there are definitely going to be some sketchier cases where this is just a sort of PR front around layoffs or around hiring freezes, but in general, I think it is good for almost every business to be start thinking, in fact, not just about AI, but in general about how can you go about re-engineering your processes, because just the fact that tooling has got so much better just for like uh, automating things with software and doing new things with LLMs, doing new things with computer vision. It just means there are a lot of use cases for making your process better. And as you start thinking about changing your processes, you might go, okay, well, we don't actually even need a technological fix. It's just something simple like, oh, well, this workflow is stupid. Let's do things a different way. And we're going to see some improvements there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think that, I can also be a little on the cynical side with the top-down mandates or the "We are AI first," and it's interesting to see there was one example with, like, the company Klarna where they went AI first for their support service chatbots and went from humans to AI, and then they ended up rolling that back and starting to hire back in some humans because the customer feedback just wasn't they were getting, yeah, lower satisfactions, like, I think that at the end of the day, like, the AI that they implemented, it wasn't truly what the customers wanted, and I think that that's, like, a good thing to keep in mind for or, like yeah, to keep in mind for all these companies when you're saying AI first, and I think it's important to start considering whatever business unit you're in, wherever you are, like, how could I use AI to make this better? But then, if you're putting it in your products, your offerings, your services, okay, is this truly what the customer wants? Does this really solve their problem? Does this really improve their experience? I think that that is gonna be, like, a more important question moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. No, I do find that Klarna case very fascinating because I mean, with everyone saying we're going AI first now, it's like Klarna started this process like back in 2023. They're very much ahead of the curve. Um, And I think they did have some successes, like, they sort of had this sort of, chatbot that was hooked. It was like I think a GPT powered chatbot that was hooked up to their recommendation engine, so giving product recommendations, and that kind of worked. The area where it didn't work so well was with trying to completely automate customer support. I think it's like careful. It's good to think carefully about where do you want your humans in the process still, and like, are there any absolute limits on like we will not get rid of these humans as you were starting to think about like incorporating AI.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely that where's the human in the loop? Where is the review point? Kind of no matter what process you're looking at improving with AI.
Yeah, definitely. Although, actually, as I say out loud, you're probably not going to know that in advance, right? You probably just have to do some experimentation and just say, okay, well, maybe we take it too far and we roll it back like Cloud. Like you can always undo these kinds of decisions, right? You can always hire more people. Not the most efficient way of doing things, but
Yeah.
like,
Not without some reputation damage in this case. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you have to have some sort of testing at least to get a sense of where you might need review points. But in my mind, ideally that testing is done either as a beta test or internal tests or whatever before you launch it out to all your customers.
yeah, absolutely. You're probably going to want to like just trial the AI first process at least a little bit and see does it do your customers hate it or not before you roll it out to everyone. Okay, I guess the next thing to talk about is the changes in data roles. For a long time, there was this idea that the data scientist was the sexiest job of the 21st century. I really hate that phrasing actually, because it's not really true. A good adjective for most data science work. Yeah, spending all day swearing at a Jupyter notebook is not really that sexy. But anyway, data engineering is kind of arguably uh, claimed that crown. So data engineering is super hot at the moment, and then also you've got analytics engineering is sort of more recent role as well. So yeah, I guess let's talk about those roles. Do you want to talk us through how you feel about those roles?
I feel like the more of the focus on the data engineering, the analytics engineering, it's all this more focus on getting those getting the good clean data in pipelines like so that it can be used for AI. So it makes more sense to me that as we start to automate some of the maybe some of the modeling or AI assisted modeling and then, AI, data viz, all this stuff, it's gonna be just even more important that we have the reliable data. Because if you feed bad quality data through these AI systems, then you're left with something even worse. I don't know. That's been like a theme I think on our podcast, just the importance of good data, of the right data for your business, of all of those aspects. And I just think that like obviously, there are data scientists who have these really broad roles that kind of are already doing this, and maybe they will just like shift their focus a little bit more or see job descriptions that shift more into the data preparation and data pipeline element. But yeah, that's just what I've been seeing of just the importance of having the right data set up for these AI models so that you can actually get the value out of it. And I think that will continue to kind of shift what is like wanted in the market for data type roles. What have you been seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. The idea that sometimes you really want like high quality control in your analyses, and I figure with a lot of analytics, that's half the job, and the other half is just like very much ad hoc analytics. So, the stuff I do is like, oh, it's trying to work out like which podcast episode were popular. Very little quality control needed. It's just like a quick look at the data. But if my colleagues in the finance department, where it's like, okay, we need to know exactly how much like ARR the company has, like how much cash flow we have. Uh, they do paranoid data science, so everything has got to be absolutely spot on, and that the quality controls there, and you need to have those pipelines in place, and that's where the data engineering, the analytics engineering, just making sure every I is dotted, every T is crossed. That's where it becomes incredibly important, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's important to have that trust element and like the quality control I think that you were talking about, definitely.
Absolutely. So actually, with the analytics engineer, I think it's incredibly interesting because a lot of the job there is that when you've got different teams having different definitions of things, their job is to kind of synchronize that. So I guess like a common thing is like maybe like one team you say, okay, anyone who has registered on our website, they're a customer. Another team might say, well, okay, they actually have to buy something and pay us some money in the last financial year, and that that counts as being a customer. And so different teams having different definitions of stuff cause a whole lot of confusion, and analytics engineers, one of their job is to create this semantic layer of like what are proper definitions of any business metrics that are used by all teams. And I love that kind of synchronization, just reducing confusion throughout your business, which just seems incredibly important as you, particularly as you scale your business and you've got more teams who are in different locations.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that is like kind of an age-old problem of, oh, these people in this business unit mean this by this metric, but someone else in another business unit will see that on a dashboard and freak out. And so I really love that having that business layer, like have been data dictionaries and like that layer to describe, okay, these are the rows and columns you're looking at, but like having that for the business, I think is really important. And I guess that does kind of transition into what I wanted to talk about next because it gets into this like domain knowledge. Like what happens with domain knowledge, the business knowledge as we move into, in the data space, as we move into more of the AI powered, more of the automation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because just thinking about it, if you've got 7 different definitions of what is a customer, and you're asking your AI chatbot, how many customers do we have? It doesn't know which one to use. You're going to get different answers different times. It's kind of probabilistic or it's a little bit random. So you really want that single definition. So you need that semantic layer, that single definition of any given business metric. Otherwise, the AI is not going to be able to give you a good, consistent answer.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and so, you were talking about the importance of, domain knowledge. Do you have a sense of, like, what data practitioners need to know about their domain or their business?
Yeah,
It's a big question, right?
it's a big question. That's a good question. I'm gonna go with the classic, it depends. I think it can really depend on whether, like, the data practitioners are kind of in, like, a center of excellence function where they are the data analytics, data engineering, whatever team servicing for a bunch of different teams versus, like, being a finance analyst or being, a the analytics person in the marketing department. I think definitely the threshold for that second type of role is higher, like, you're expected to have more of the domain knowledge. Overall, though, the biggest thing for me when it comes to domain knowledge is, like, you need to know what your business stakeholders care about, like, what metrics are most important to them and the why kind of thing. Understanding and asking good questions around if you're dealing with data. It's like, oh, what does this mean when this number goes way down? Or asking those probing questions of getting at, like, why do you want this analysis? Because occasionally, sometimes stakeholders will come and think that they want one thing, and as you dive deeper, you realize, oh, there's actually I know about the data at this company. There's actually more data we could use to, like, really get you some more insights, but they don't know because 'cause they're focused on their own roles, and so, like, asking those, like, questions and having, like, a feedback loop with the business side, no matter how embedded your role is, I think is just, like, a crucial skill, especially if some of the technology skill pieces might be automated.
I do love that idea that it's incredibly important to be able to translate between business questions and data questions. It's like going backwards and forwards between the two. I think that's a pretty timeless skill. So yeah, definitely one to work on for a lot of people. I was find it interesting. So you talk about the difference between being in a central data team and being embedded as a data practitioner within like a commercial team or some other team. So I think that's definitely a trend I've seen is that for data analysts and data scientists, they are increasingly becoming embedded. So unless you're in a large company, it's sort of fairly rare to have um, analysts in a central data team. Though more gonna be is like my job title isn't data analyst; it's sales analyst because I'm in a sales team, or I'm marketing analyst because I'm in a marketing team, or I'm doing data plus product and in a product team. So, I don't know whether there's something you've seen as well, and do you think that's changing the nature of the data analyst role?
I do see that at smaller organizations, like, I don't know, in my mind, the centralized function where they're kind of taking in tickets and they're managing things like, that can be maybe, like, a more mature kind of data structure, but I'm not sure, but, like, I do see, a lot of embedded analysts, and even, I guess, going back to the very beginning of the episode, I see people who their teams need an analyst and they step up and they become an analyst even though that's not their background. And something interesting, like a conversation a few months back on the podcast was with an author who talks about like this role of citizen data scientist. And I guess it's something that is also kind of a new industry term that I think is really interesting of, like, those people who are almost, 50% business, 50% data scientists, and they're able to do that because of the low code, no code tools that arise. And so, yeah, I think, like, also going back to what you said on there's data everywhere. Like, you have to no matter what role you're in, data's gonna find its way into your work. So there's kind of some evolution of these roles, and I'm curious to see how that'll continue to play out. It's hard to know.
Yeah, definitely. I have to say, I'm totally there with you that even if your background isn't data, a lot of these the tooling is there now, so it's very easy to do at least some analyses, even if you have no desire to be a data analyst is all your job. But just like, yeah, I mean, just picking up some simple like Alteryx workflows, um, draw some dashboards in Power BI or Tableau or Looker or whatever the platform is. These aren't terribly difficult skills to learn, so it's something that you can do in addition to having, um, like, your sales, marketing, product, whatever knowledge. So, yeah, you can do it as, like, a kind of part of your job rather than it being like a full-time everything.
Yeah, but then I do think it gets a little trickier as you move into the more traditionally, like, more technical data science, data engineer. What is that? Are there citizen versions of that? That can get a little harder to balance with the business side probably.
Yeah, definitely. I think once you get into, I'm trying to think what's a more difficult thing. So maybe like time series forecasting is a very useful thing for business analytics, but it's also it's a pretty technical skill. You are going to have to spend like a lot more time learning that. The thing is with statistical stuff, so hypothesis testing, it's one of those things where like when people take courses on DataCamp, we have to push it further back in the curriculum because it's like it's the first thing that's like really conceptually tricky. Like everyone gets the hang of like drawing plots pretty quickly. Well, not everyone, but most people get the hang of drawing plots pretty quickly, and manipulating data is fairly easy to learn for most people. You just got to kind of spend the time, but then statistics, you really got to stop and like think carefully because a lot of it's counterintuitive. So yeah, there are definitely some conceptually harder things that maybe you do have to put in a lot of time to do well. Although maybe AI will make it easier for everyone there.
Maybe it will, yeah, it's kind of it's a crazy time. I even just preparing for this episode, like, just looking at all of the articles out there on AI this, AI first that, like, these companies are doing this. This is this is not getting value, this is getting value, like, I sometimes I feel like I can't keep up a little bit. That is it's challenging to keep up with the pace of all this sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think that it's like it's you and 8 billion other people trying to figure out how do you keep up. So yeah, I think continuing to learn stuff, especially when you've got a day job and you've got deadlines of things, it is difficult. And part of it is just about building that habit of spending time to learn. So whether it's like you block off like half an hour on a Friday afternoon to just sit and read stuff, or whether you try and make it like a 10 minutes on your commute every day. Yeah, building that habit of learning is incredibly important. I don't know if you have any tips for like how to build learning into your day to day life.
No, I mean, I think it is important to incorporate as you can in small bits, and for me, it's been important to when I do have a little bit of extra time, just taking a bit of time to, like, experiment. If I hear about a new tool, if I hear about, um, somebody else's use case, do kind of the learn by doing, at least with just, like, generative AI for me, that's been helpful, to kind of play around with it and see what it is in action, but yeah, I'm sure that if people wanna learn more, the DataCamp courses, I think, could be super useful to get into that as well.
Absolutely. And so I think one of the things I've found especially helpful is like, there's all these like papers on archive about new technology developments. And frankly, I can't bother to read most of them. So it's like, okay, download the PDF, throw it into one of these AI chatbots. Like, okay, can you just tell me like the executive summary, like a bit more, get a bit more detail than the abstract maybe, but like just ask a few simple questions to try and understand what's going on. I found that incredibly helpful.
Yeah, that makes me think, like, maybe the logical next step of this podcast is creating an AI agent that sends you automated summaries on data hot topics. If we if we go through the next steps of what AI agents could do, but anyway, more of a silly example.
I mean, beyond this, I have to say, with my LinkedIn feed, I have to follow a lot of like AI influencers, and so it's very difficult to like go on LinkedIn without just seeing someone talking about like whatever the hot new thing is. So yeah, it is definitely fairly easy to sort of passively consume this when it's being thrust at you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Do you have any like final advice for people who want to like build their data or AI careers?
What's interesting is typically or sometimes on our podcast, it's like advice for people getting into data. And for that, like my biggest thing is like find the data where you are in your role now and start experimenting, start trying to use these new tools. And, whether that looks like automating your Excel analysis or downloading a visualization tool or experimenting more with an LLM, I think that's a great place to start. In terms of like building, an already thriving, career in data as we see AI more, I do think a piece of it is trying to keep up with some of these announcements and, like, understanding when certain new technologies come out, when that could be transformative, like, for your work, and instead of maybe shying away from, "Oh gosh, that tool looks like maybe it could replace my job in 5 years or something, like, leaning into how could I use some of the stuff I have now to show and demonstrate that I am, you know, automating, that I am improving with AI and be that person that people start coming to at your company when they have some AI questions or use cases or ideas, like, if you can get to that more of the AI advisor role, whether unofficially or officially, I think that's huge. How about you? What is your advice?
Yeah, I know. I love that idea of getting to the point where other people ask you for advice just by understanding use cases and having like at least like the first clue about what to do next. Having developing an intuition for like what's sensible, what's not. For me, I think a lot of the stuff we talked about on the show today about the idea of having a mix of technical skills and business skills, and beyond that, I guess it's the soft skills, it's the communication skills, sense of ownership, all this kind of stuff. Those as a package, that's really gonna help your career, I think. Um, and beyond that, I guess the one thing we've not really talked about is the idea that everyone's going AI first, and it's all about process engineering. So understanding process analytics, that's the one area of like analytics I think is like dramatically underrated. No one seems to care about, but like it's the future.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for this conversation. This is super fun.
Absolutely, I really enjoyed chatting with you, Megan.
Thanks for listening. To learn more about DataCamp and the DataFramed podcast, head over to our show notes on alteryx.com/podcast. And if you like this episode, leave us a review. See you next time.